Om Shri Sai Ram. Sri Satya Sai Baba and Naranarayana Gufa Ashram. Epilogue. When Bhagavan Baba handed the divine jar to the group of 11, he urged them not to publicize it. He said, I know it is in your human nature to publicize even the smallest miracle that comes to you as a result of your spiritual endeavors. Don't do that though. For the omnipresent, Almighty Lord, anything that seems miraculous to us is quite common. By His divine will alone, He created the 3 worlds and the 14 levels of consciousness in the subtle world, as well as irrepressible mountains like those of the Himalayas, the unfathomably deep oceans, and the 5 basic elements of our existence. Sending those 11 very devout men equipped with the divine part to a height of about 5,500 meters was therefore only child's play for him, and there was no reason to fuss about it. Yet there is also another important aspect of God's Leelas. Indeed, one of the many reasons God incarnates on earth is the formless Lord takes a form to participate Himself in His divine play. Thus, during His avatarship, the Lord performs innumerable Leelas who originate in the pure and the true love between Him and His beloved devotees. People sing the glory of those Leelas and saints from the bottom of their hearts, through which the seed of love can be sown. When this comes up, it is infused with stories of Bhagavan and His playful wonders, who do the rounds in the company of good and righteous people. This love plant roots gradually firmly in the hearts of believers and grows into a great tree. These dedicated men finally reap the fruit of liberation. It is this love and devotion to the Lord that helps people cross the ocean of samsara of this earthly existence. And it is with these sacred intentions that this booklet was written. However, there is another reason. A large number of followers who have come into contact with Bhagavan occupy reasonable, responsible positions in the public life, both in India and abroad. Swami has asked them to fulfill that duty as good servants of the people. But in their everyday lives, they are sometimes confronted with situations that demand the utmost from them. It is necessary for such people to strengthen their faith every now and then. And that happens when they learn more and more about Bhagavan's greatness, a greatness that is consistently increasing and hits you deep in your heart. The Lord once said, it is often very difficult for those around me to understand that I am Bhagavan. Only a spiritual seeker who is always vigilant succeeds. And why Goswami Tulsidas gives beautiful explanation in the Ramacharita as follows. It is quite easy to grasp the formless, featureless and infinite aspect of the Lord. But for believers who imagine and worship God in form and with characteristic attributes, God's incarnation is in a human form with all the features of, at the same time, exceptionally difficult to recognize. On the surface, the above quote contains a paradox, since it is generally believed that worship of formless is the most difficult. Even Lord Krishna describes in Gita the worship of God without form or characteristic as extremely difficult, in contrast to the worship of God with the name and form. However, how can then Tulsidas make such a statement? The explanation is as follows. Spiritual discipline is quite difficult when you worship a God without form or features. In comparison, the way of worship of God by name and form is easier, but if you assume that everything is illusion, the spiritual discipline based on worship of a certain name and form is more difficult. In the worship without form or characteristic, the experience of unity or unity in diversity is the ultimate goal. This entire creation consists of nothing but Brahman. So there is no reason to doubt. Doubt arises only if there are two or more options to choose. However, what is there to choose when everything is Brahman? The Vedanta describes it like this. When it is absolutely certain that Brahman is ubiquitous, why should we maintain any illusion or worry? However, in the spiritual disciplines based on devotion to a god of certain form, who possess specific characteristics, you always encounter contradictions and doubt arises. And what contradictions can such practitioner of spiritual disciplines encounter? Tulsidas says about that like this, which means God's miracles are both simple and complicated. They are completely inscrutable and even misleading at times. It is precisely because these leelas are often so simple that the ordinary believer becomes doubtful. Is the one he worships really God? After all, this behaves like an ordinary person. He eats, drinks, talks, plays, and sleeps like any other human being, which leads people to think that there is nothing special about him. Seen in this way, he is one of ours. For everything that the divine incarnation does often seems ordinary. But when Bhagavan performs one of his miracles, everything suddenly seems so mysterious and we cannot reason his actions. Therefore, even great scholars, ascetics, and realized people become confused and doubt takes hold of them. The most amazing thing is that a Leela from Bhagavan can seem both simple and mysterious. There is a good example of this, which took place in the time of Krishna. As a young boy, Krishna liked to herd the cows in the company of the other boys. He interacted with them quite normally and participated in all their games. He ate with them, played with them, and from time to time joked with them. His friends, Subala, among others, just let him ride on their buffalo. They jokingly called him sweetheart, frolicked with him and jumped on his back. Nor did they see a leg in letting him eat their own things. On such a day, Brahma, the creator of Vedas, came by. Seeing Krishna so busy and observing how freely these cowherds dealt with him, he also doubted his divinity and decided to test Krishna. So, this divine play of Krishna was common to his comrades, but it was beyond Brahma's understanding. Similarly, Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba has also performed several leelas which are both easy and difficult to understand. There is a good example of this in connection with the Gufa Ashram. When the 12th man in the group reached Urvashikunt lake, he threw both the divine food jar and the ring and watch he had received from Bhagavan into the lake. Then he returned home, so much so that he had doubted the divinity of Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba. The influence is very simple. One who does not get rid of his ego, who does not become pure and simple in spirit and does not surrender completely to God, cannot fathom the Bhagavan's play of illusion. Although this 12th man was so lucky to be near Baba, he ignored Bhagavan's directions. He broke this. It goes without saying that he had no understanding of Bhagavan's divine status. Thereby he was thrown far back spiritually, while those who had completely surrendered to the will of the Lord acquired Bhagavan's mercy. But this Bhagavan's Leela turned out to have yet another hidden dimension which none of the 11 group members knew. When the Lord once again showed himself in the Gufa Ashram, he lifted the veil of this mystery. Bhagavan reminded them that when the group had proposed to ask him for help in bringing up the divine part, which lay on the bottom of the lake, the leader was against it. He preferred to dive to the bottom himself to bring up the Akshay Patra. Well considered, that was an impossible thing, a job that normally no one could have accomplished. However, it was Bhagavan Sai Baba's divine will that prompted the group leader to reject the proposal and then dive into the lake to take the pot up. When they heard this revelation from Bhagavan, one of them asked curiously, "But Maharaj, what he did was extremely risky. Wouldn't it have been nicer if instead of motivating him to take that risk, you would have brought up that pot yourself? Our leader may have succeeded in this, but he also nearly killed himself, and we were only able to bring him to consciousness after half an hour." The Lord smiled and replied, "That's the way it should have been. That's how I wanted it to be." All who heard this were very surprised. To satisfy their innate curiosity and astonishment, Bhagavan then told them the real secret of this Leela lies in the fact that the man should have died on that day. He was given a lifespan of 33 years and several months at birth, and that time had now passed. However, this calamity was averted by keeping him unconscious for half an hour. The death throes he would have had to endure at that time of death was turned into half an hour of unconsciousness. In addition, he was given a new span of 120 years. I had to do this because this devotee had completely surrendered to me. I think it is well known that Bhagavan has also extended the life of the American Walter Cowan. The Lord declared to the god of death his intervention as follows: "This soul has performed only honorable deeds and led a pure life in this life as in all his previous lives. Yet he could never achieve his goal of completing at liberation. Therefore, his life may be extended." Moreover, Bhagavan placed this point in a different light. Just as a honest merchant whose business suffers losses is kindly assisted by the government with a loan and favorable terms and low interest rate, so God addressed Yamaraja in the name of justice to both Cowan and the leader of the Gufa Ashram a few more years of life. The latter was reborn in the same body with Urvashikund and will live for 120 years from that day onwards. The revelation about that mysterious event at Urvashikund greatly surprised all present. They came to realize that Swami's actions, which are all part of his divine play, seem so simple, but that there is a very deep meaning behind them. That also means that one should beware of thinking that one can understand God. Dependence on God and surrender are the only means of getting close to Him. There always comes a time when He Himself comes to shed light on what has remained dark to His followers. Just as the devotees of Gufa Ashram could only understand the mysterious acts of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba by His grace, so now others can benefit from the experiences reported here. We must always be aware of who we have before us when we approach the Lord. Above all, let's not think that we are dealing with an ordinary human being when we are His daily, when we are at His presence daily. Seemingly simple leelas we observed, but let's not put Him far beyond our reach because He is so mysterious, so hard to understand. We must guard against creeping doubt. Our trust in God must be rock solid. Sai Baba often gives his followers the opportunity to ask what they want. That's the time when they are being tested. At that time, they should not demand anything from the Lord but His unwavering grace and unconditional trust in Him. Before closing this book, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the head of the Gufa Ashram. Yours, Maheshwaranand, Prashanti Nilayam. Incarnation of Sri Naranarayana. The incarnation of Lord Naranarayana gives us an ideal picture of asceticism in the most sacred traditions of the avatars. Among the many famous books written about the 24 incarnations as avatar of Lord Vishnu, the book Bhaktamali of Nabhadas occupies a very important place. Besides, as Naranarayana, the avatar is also known as Badripati. Under this name, he protects the magnificence of the consecrated sanctuary of Sri Badrinath, located at the bosom of the blessed Himalayas. Lord Narayana was born from Murti, one of the daughters of King Dakshas, and revealed himself in two guises, a man and as a god, as man and as God. At the time of his birth, he took the form of a large ascetic. He wore his hair in a braided bun on the head and had a pale blue complexion. He had a beautiful halo around his head and long, strong arms. Shortly after his birth, he requested and obtained permission from his parents to go to the consecrated sanctuary of Badrinath to practice asceticism. Since then, he is completely absorbed in himself and he will remain in this state until the end of this kalpa. The character of Naranarayana is the embodied self of a real ascetic who Kamadeva uniquely conquered. Other gods also defeated Kamadeva, but in order to achieve their goal, they always had to get very angry with him. Lord Naranarayana, however, could submit Kamadeva to himself through love and generosity. In doing so, he created the ideal image of a true ascetic. Except in the Bhaktamali, extensive references about Naranarayana can be found in the Srimad Bhagavata Purana, the Mahabharata and other Puranas. This completes the unique account of Sri Satya Sai Baba and the Naranarayana Gufa Ashram. Om Shri Sai Ram. Sai Rama, Sai Rama, Sai Rama, Sai Rama. Sai Rama, Sai Rama, Sai Rama, Sai Rama. Sai Rama, Sai Rama, Sai Rama.